Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
So, in the next installment of our series about movies that didn't age well, I think we called it Cringworthy or something like that.
So, Weird Hollywood.
Weird Hollywood, yes.
Yes. So, if you can't tell, the posters behind us say it all. We are going to be looking back at the 1980s film Weird Science. And weird it is.
Weird it is indeed. In fact, it was when I rewatched it, it was actually weirder than I had originally remembered.
This film is just wild.
Yeah, so obviously this comes from John Hughes, who was best known for 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club. So he was your quintessential teen movie guy, and then he changed things up a little bit with this one.
Right. This one just kind of isn't out, like, for me, this one just kind of sits in like not the realm of like super popular, but if you're a fan of The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, you probably have run across this one.
It became a cult classic. I mean, it did fine in the box office. Like, it wasn't a smash, but it made back its money, but then kind of went on to be a cult film.
Right. This one just kind of the premise is just so strange, but the fact that it feels like they spent so little on the script, like they had a kernel of an idea and they just started making up the movie as they went along. The acting, oh my gosh, the acting is just so, like, when you think 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club, there's these, the actors are
dramatic
and it's very dramatic, and there are moments of these just kernels of loveliness where you just have these wonderful moments that make you you feel something, and you feel something for these characters and you relate to them. And with Weird Science, it just is very much, there's a distance put between the audience and the actual characters.
Yeah,
that is very it's very hard to get into the plot. It's very hard to relate to these people because they are very much like cardboard cutouts. They're very much caricatures of what of what they were going for, really, because they're supposed to be like the nerdy guys that don't like, they don't get the I guess the girls, like the top, like the top tier,
right?
Like,
so this was obviously and this was the same era as Revenge of the Nerds, which is another film that probably could not be made now. Did not age well. There's a lot of problems with that, but again, it's that era when the jocks were cool, the geeks were not, and the geeks do something to prove that they are, in which case it's turning a Barbie doll to life in this case.
Right. So let's get into the science of Weird Science and how much it's not at all science. It's basically, this was made back in the time where you can just make up shit about computers.
It's a computer. It can do everything.
Right. Where you could just make up shit about computers and nobody would know. So they're like scanning images of women in bikinis and like all sorts of random stuff. Like they would scan, like they use a scanner to scan in pictures into the computer of all the that they want the woman of their dreams to have. And like they scan them, for example, they would scan a picture of Albert Einstein, and that was to denote that she would be extremely intelligent.
Right.
Like just scanning a picture of Albert Einstein's face is going to automatically give the CGI, the AI woman, the intelligence of Albert Einstein. Just off of a picture.
It just makes sense. I mean, But again, this was the beginning of computers, and we'd had a few movies that touched on it. We had War Games, we had Daryl at the time, which kind of touched on, this emerging power that people were not familiar with. This took it in a different direction.
And then like a little later, you'll have Tron, which really, that movie, as I love Tron, but it's not a good movie. It's got a lot of problems, but it did take us into, I think that was like a foray into what computer sci-fi could be.
Right.
And it really was kind of the turning point of what we could do with computers and stories about cyber.
Right. So cybernetics, technology, right,
exactly. This is not that.
No, this is not that at all, and I don't think it ever really pretended to be that.
That's the thing. The computer and the like very like false weird pseudo science behind it was just supposed to be like fun gimmicky stuff in order to get to the main point, which was making the quote unquote the perfect woman who awkwardly enough is not their age.
Nope, not even a little bit. She's almost 10 years older.
So that puts the audience in a very awkward position of having to watch a like relationship that is illegal.
Yep. We are borderline pedophilia here. She's 23, they're 15.
Right. So it's just like this, it's a completely inappropriate relationship, highly illegal, that like they posit that they're going to have with this woman, and this woman also, because she's computer generated and she's AI, obviously she's just down with it because she was created to be that way.
Right. Which makes it okay.
But that's kind of the thing, is like you go throughout the movie with the knowledge that like, obviously this woman obviously isn't AI, and you can't really get behind the fact that she is like knowingly and willingly doing this, and you're just like, this is so wrong. This woman is so wrong. We do not stand this woman at all.
Right.
This is so uncomfortable. And then there's also these other elements that just would not pass for nowadays, which is fine. We live, we learn, we understand that, it was a different time that this was made. But then when you rewatch it, you're just like, yeah, movies used to be that way.
They really did. I mean, they took objectification and stereotypes to the extreme, both with women and with ethnic minority groups. The lovely scene where they're in the bar and these 15-year-olds get drunk, and Anthony Michael Hall's character just starts jive talking, for lack of a better word to describe it, with this group of elderly African American men, and you're just like, I don't really know how to process what's going on right here. Now, maybe perhaps people are going to say it was an era, we're too woke now to appreciate this. I mean, and I remember watching this back in the day and have since rewatched it, but boy, oh boy.
It just, and the problem is like, it goes on for so long.
It's not just like a few words here and there. It's a solid,
it's
15 minutes.
Scenes.
It's 2 scenes, yeah.
It spans, like the gimmick, the joke spans across 2 separate scenes, like 2 whole scenes. And it just, because the humor of this movie is, there's not a lot of it. Like they don't give you a lot to work with because they didn't really spend that much time. trying to figure out how to make like a seamless, like nice script. I swear to God, they just started they just said roll the cameras,
let's see what happens,
and let's see what happens. Just make a movie based off of like this like tiny kernel of an idea, making the perfect woman with a computer. And they just kind of whatever they felt that day just went in and shot it. And so that joke it went on so long, so painfully long. And then like right after that you have the woman, you know, your CGI, your AI main character coming on to the 15-year-olds, and you're just like, oh God, no. Like right after the really awkward scene that you have to sit through with Michael C. Hall jive talking.
Oh man. And then you have your stereotypical, you know, mean jocks, the cool boys, with a lovely introduction to Robert Downey, no junior at the time, just Robert Downey, and their two hot girlfriends who they could give two fucks about, which is lovely. They dump ices on people's heads and do all the things that mean boys did in 80s movies, I guess.
It's funny because like you look at the two, there's not too much to denote that like those two are cooler than the main two.
The hair, Genevieve, it's the hair. I was reading an article and they're like, 80s men spent more time on their hair than like modern gay men. And I was like, you know, this is probably accurate. Not just stereotype, but
there was so much product that was demanded of both men, women, everything.
Oh man, yes. Oh, the 80s hair was in abundance.
Like so high demand. Aquanet was basically like covered the entire
they just bought it at Costco by the case.
Right. Like it was basically another layer in the ozone. And like I was looking at RDJ and I was thinking to myself, like, this is a soft boy. Like this would like he'd be a soft boy today. And I'm like, they had their soft boys in the 80s, but like at the same time I was thinking like, but it's not your stereotypical like 80s jock who is going to like be respected. I mean, like really, Robert.
Yeah, he wasn't like the big, bulky, you know, football dude.
He's skinny. He has like a ton of product in his hair. His skin is like.
I'm guessing they were rich.
Poor baby.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
But the other two seem to be pretty well off. I mean, he had a computer in the 80s when not many people did. So
he had a computer. He had a very large house. I
mean, we don't establish where this is.
One, I forgot if it was Michael C. Hall who had the large house, and then the other friend seemed to have like a smaller, more into like less affluent living situation with his parents, who the dad
Wyatt, Ian Michael Smith. Yeah, so Wyatt, Ian Michael Smith, they had the big house with the computer, and then Anthony Michael Hall had the house with the weird, creepy parents whose memories she erases. Well, the dad, at least.
Right, exactly. So to give, for people who haven't seen this movie, to give like kind of an example of why I think this was just kind of written on the fly, and I don't know, it feels like a tax write-off to me. It really does.
Especially after The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, which all had their problems either, but they're considered classics to this day.
Either somebody needed a tax write-off, somebody needed like the producers like a flop in order like to collect on the money after, or they, I have no idea. I couldn't pretend to know, but that's just how it feels to me. So they create an AI woman out of the computer using both a scanner to scan in images, some very rudimentary type of CG like character builder sort of thing.
Like what was it, CAD? What I remember
pretty much CAD.
Yeah, like CAD, yeah.
They were basically using CAD. And then in order to make it real, they continue to plug in more like power sources into the computer to make it more powerful. And they actually, I mean, they did hack into a server somewhere.
Yep.
But like they just have this montage of them plugging in like a bunch of appliances.
Just wires, just
and
lots
wires,
of wires
and appliances and all sorts of things. Like we need more power, and then somehow doing that is going to energize this like Barbie doll that they had set up on a game board, and the Barbie doll would like get energized with the power and then somehow become a real life woman somehow. Like again, it's this weird like pseudoscience thing
right
that happens, and then you slowly figure out that that the AI woman can actually make things like cars.
Yeah, she's got powers.
She's magic.
Yeah, which we never explained. She just does.
So it was pointed out to me that along with scanning in my cat just sneezed. Along with scanning in pictures of Albert Einstein, they also scanned in pictures of Harry Houdini. So that's where the magic comes from.
Ah. I totally missed that. Okay, well played.
And,
well played.
Well played. And so she's magic, so she can change the boys' clothes into looking popular. She can give them like cars and stuff.
Right, cars, and but she decorates the house and turns lights on and
right. But then she also starts manifesting different dimensions. Like the climax of this film is the weirdest, most out there thing. Like, I don't know where they grabbed this from, but in order for the boys to have their like heroic moment and their like their main character growth,
biker gang.
Yes, the biker gang. Their main character growth moment is that she is they're in the middle of a big party that's going very wrong.
Right.
Because
as all high school parties do.
And it's going very wrong for them. And so the AI woman decides that she is going to manifest a Mad Max-esque bikie gang,
which I guess was supposed to be from one of the movies they were watching. Seems to be where the inspiration was from.
Maybe. I must have missed that part. But yeah, they just like burst through a wall in the house and they're riding motorcycles throughout the house and like harassing all the party guests. And
let's not like be at all vague about this. Like, this was a Mad Max scene because they in fact cast the actor from Mad Max 2 to play the character he plays in Mad Max 2. It's almost the exact same costume and
it's pretty much it's basically the character, which they just shamelessly did that. And so the boys are supposed to use this as a growth moment where they stand up and like to the bullies, to the biker gang, and then like basically impress the girls that they were like the quote unquote the real girls that like thank God are their age, to impress them, impress the people at the party, and to teach them like a lesson of standing up for themselves and you know growing up and all of that. But it is just so strange that this is what they chose as the climax of their film, is just to introduce this really random Mad Max biker gang.
Yeah, it was
for no reason other than that they needed a climax.
Right. And this was after they'd already had the confrontation with Chet. So we'd already kind of had that like standing up to bullies moment, at least for Wyatt, you know, because thank you, Bill Pullman, for your Bill Paxton, for your lovely rendition of the asshole older brother Chet, who is basically the embodiment of all things toxic masculinity, I guess. And he's turned into a poop monster. So I'm wondering though, like, is this where Google or Facebook or whomever got the idea for the poop emoji? I want to know, because it is uncanny. This poop monster to the poop emoji.
Right. Like the woman that they make is more threatening than anything else. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that is part of the I'm sure that it's part of the intention, because she does she like freezes the grandparents and shoves them in a closet for the rest of the party that they're having, which that is just, you have no idea what, like, if they can think or if they can breathe or what's going on. And so like that existentially is horrifying. She
does to the parents, like when she goes to Gary's house and basically like tells them that she's taking her son, to an orgy.
She holds them at gunpoint.
Yep, pulls a gun on him and then erases his memory.
Yeah, and then she pulls a gun on them, erases their memory, but the father never gets it back. So he doesn't remember his own son, even at the end of the film. Like, she causes more harm, honestly, than she does.
She's like the anti-Mary Poppins.
Yeah, it's just very strange. She's very threatening. And the whole predator thing added on top of it is also extremely, like, not okay. So I saw what they were going for. Like, they wanted to have like an older woman kind of like teach them the ropes and push them along to become like better men, better people, like, and it just, a lot of the lessons were just like, you're going about this in the most awkward and unhelpful way, especially when the boys themselves acknowledge this, and she still continues to do it anyway because I don't, like, CG woman knows best, ? Like, arguably she is the villain of this movie.
Yes, she is definitely a catalyst for good or bad.
I'm gonna err on the side of bad, even though the framework is like older sister just like helping out, her two younger brothers, and it's just like that was not, because they added the sexual element in there as well. And so it's just like, you can't view it that way.
No.
Because of this.
Right.
And because of the fact that she continues to like come on to these boys who are visibly and vocally uncomfortable.
Right. I mean, they shower together. She kisses Wyatt. She alludes to the fact that they were going to sleep together, but then he fell asleep, but they were going to try again.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things where you're like, this was, it just wasn't a good vehicle for anybody, really. And I do feel sorry for the actress. I mean, like, this launched her career, but at the same time, looking back on it, I wonder what she must have thought reading this script and being like, I have to do what with these?
Honestly, she really only did this and one other movie. Like, she was a model. She was like, for those who don't know, she was like, Kelly LeBrock was like the it girl of the 80s. Like, she was voted like sexiest woman of whatever the era. So she was a very well-known model at the time, and she had previously done another film that was kind of the same type of thing, where she was essentially cast because she was the sex symbol. Didn't really do anything else after this. So I don't know. I mean, yeah,
I don't know. This movie just,
but hey, Danny Elfman did the theme song, so that's a thing. Weird Science. It was with Oingo Boingo. So this is before Danny Elfman became the Danny Elfman that we know. This was when Danny Elfman was still trying to be a rock star.
Got you. Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So we did get that gem out of this movie, the
Right.
great theme song. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. Apparently there was a TV show in the 90s based on this that ran for 5 seasons. I had no idea. Apparently the creator of the movie had no idea. And as late as I want to say 2017, there were rumors that they were going to reboot it. Still hasn't happened. So
I would stay away from this IP.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is, of all the nostalgia movies to reboot, I'm gonna say let's just put this one on the back burner.
Right. Bras on the head and Barbie dolls coming to life. Yeah, probably not. I just don't know how they would do it and like make it okay.
Yeah, how do we not objectify women, stereotype people, and not allude to
CP?
Yeah. So if Hollywood has figured this out, then great. Maybe they're all in college. Maybe that's what happens. The kids are in college now and they create a really smart woman to help them with their exams.
I
don't know. I'm just throwing shit out there because, like, honestly, if we're taking the premise of the show as it is now, I can't see it flying very well. I just have I have concerns.
Yeah, and it just comes to the point of like when something is made that is so very dated.
Yeah.
And it was made basically in a vacuum of its time and its culture.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be a reason to reboot things. There doesn't need to be a reason to be like, well, I liked this growing up, so I'm going to like revamp this for my child or their children or whatever the reason. It's like everybody's going to have their own thing that is going to define their childhood, their experiences growing up. And those are honestly going to be the things that were also made in a vacuum, were of its time.
Right.
And whether or not they still hold up, you know, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But it shouldn't, I don't think I've ever like honestly had something that was a reboot or like an IP that was like beaten to death that I as a kid was like, I love this, you know.
Right.
It's usually always going to be something that like, you know, was of its time, made in its time, and was very much informed by the culture of that era.
And that's exactly what this was. I mean, this was the 80s in a nutshell. I mean, it is the epitome of all things 80s.
Although I guess you do have that kind of horrifying realization that like there is an entire generation growing up now that is being spoon-fed and subjected to reboots and IPs of our time.
Yeah.
Where there is very little originality being put out there. Luckily, there's movies that are coming out now that for kids and young adults that I really do
have a better message.
That I really do believe in that are, you know, like Encanto, loved it. Turning Red.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And those are the things that people are going to remember. And those are the things that people are going to, you know, grow up still loving.
Right.
It's not going to be whatchamacallit, it's not going to be Battleship. It's not going to be, it's not going to be Picard.
No. It's going to be the things that people can relate to. And exactly. So those are our thoughts on Weird Science and why it didn't age well and could not be remade now. Let us know your thoughts. And if you have ideas of other movies that you think we should talk about that perhaps should not be touched in this modern era, let us know in the comments.
The 80s. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, let's just maybe just forget most of the 80s. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I still have my passions. I mean, yeah.
Yes.
Anywho.
Well, thank you all for joining us. Let us do the outro.
All right. So
this is the rollout,
and we'll geek with
you next week.
Boom.
Yeah. Did it. Got him.
Mic drop. All right, everyone.
At the feed.